I know that there are a lot of you out there that have been as eager as I have been to get to the NFL draft because we spend so much time talking and projecting and contemplating what all these different teams might do that it's a little bit Christmas morning by the time we get to Thursday night and we can all open the packages and see exactly how everything is going to break out. We bring in now Albert Breer, who does a great job covering the NFL for Sports Illustrated. You can go follow him on Twitter, and I'll tweet out the link certainly to his Twitter handle later in the show and during the podcast. But Albert, thanks for getting up early with us. You're writing about it. I mean, does it feel a little bit like Christmas for an NFL writer because of all the attention the draft gets to finally be here?
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, it's definitely a different style of journalism, I would say, when you're covering the draft, because there's a lot of rumor mongering and stuff like that, you know, and so you're trying to cut through what's real and what's not, and it's kind of a fun exercise because, I mean, from my standpoint, I can be a resource to the teams this time of year too. So, you know, all of the people that I'm covering over the course of the year,
it's information arbitrage, right? They want to know what you're hearing.
Yeah. So, you know, like a lot of times, like you might be going to people for stuff and you might be asking for stuff from people. And, you know, I this time of year is great because I have something real to offer them back. So I always have fun with it. And, you know, the really interesting thing about it, Clay, is all the work that you do for like the 2-3 weeks leading up to it when it really heats up. You know, you get to draft night and boom, it's all there, and then all that work kind of goes up in smoke.
That's why I think it's Christmas. That's why it's Christmas, because you're a kid and you spend all this time thinking about, well, if I get this present, I'm going to do this, and then you know you can't get to sleep the night before, and you have young kids, and that's one of the best things about being a parent is having young kids again to get to relive Christmas, and also, by the way, to get to relive sports back through your kids' eyes as they become fans and play in Little League and everything else. But all right, let's go into the draft itself. So Trevor Lawrence 1 to the Jags, Zach Wilson 2 to the Jets. Everything seems to kind of the hinge pick in the early part of the first round is the 49ers. Mac Jones is the Vegas favorite to be the third pick. Do you believe that's the direction the 49ers are going, and how confident are you in Mac Jones if you believe that's the direction they're going?
I think it's going to be Mac Jones. I can't say with any level of certainty. I don't think Kyle Shanahan's told very many people what he's doing here. And he's going to be the one with his finger on the trigger on Thursday night.
Do you think he knows?
I do. I think now he does. Yeah. I mean, if I had to guess, I'd say yeah, he does. And I think when they came out of Fargo last week, and Kyle and John Lynch were both there last Monday, they went back into another set of meetings on Tuesday in California, and that was to finalize the decision. And, you know, I think, you know, if you ask me, like, the way this has gone, I think when they made the trade, really for Kyle, there's a quarterback there in Mac Jones that I feel comfortable with, that I feel like could be my quarterback for the next 15 years. And I'm also intrigued by the other two, by Trey Lance and Justin Fields. And so we want to go through a full process, like a month process of looking at all of them, meeting with them, not having to hide, you know, getting
it's like The Bachelor
and all that different stuff. Right. And like, so, you know, in a way, like Justin Fields and Trey Lance are playing catch up, I think, in that there's a quarterback that Kyle's very comfortable with there. And now, you know, the other two guys have a month to catch him. So I don't have any reason to believe that Mac Jones did not hang on to his lead, but we'll all see on Thursday night. And I mean, look, like after talking to some people around Mac, guys who played with him, guys who coached him, I think I got a little bit of a better understanding of some of the things that you can't see that really appeal to Kyle about Mac.
So I want you to see if you buy my thesis here. Back in the day, you're dating a girl or you're dating a guy, depending on who people are listening to out there. And whoever you break up with or get broken up with, very often you go in the opposite direction with the next person that you date. Somewhat of a calculated decision, but also you're like, hey, this situation failed. Now we're moving on. I'm curious if you buy into this thesis that I kind of laid out on Friday, but I've thought about more over the weekend. Trey Lance and Justin Fields feel to me a little bit like Jimmy Garoppolo. And what I mean by that is they are guys that may have a high ceiling, but I think when I watch Kyle Shanahan and his frustration with Jimmy Garoppolo, it's over Garoppolo not doing the things that he thinks should be 100% successes, right? Like, in Super Bowl is a big example, but he has George Kittle, he has Emmanuel Sanders. Like, the plays are there to be run. And if I watch Mac Jones, what I picked up on, I watch a lot of college football like you do, is the dude almost never sees the field incorrectly, right? Like, he's going to make the right decision. Now, his ceiling may not be as high as Trey Lance or Justin Fields, but in terms of being able to plug him in, I feel like Kyle Shanahan has just gotten so tired of Jimmy Garoppolo not executing the offense in the most efficient manner. And so he's looking at Mac Jones now as the anti-Garoppolo, a guy who may not necessarily wow you at times, but you're gonna get the B+ game every day. And he's like, if we got a B+ quarterback with the defense we have and the talent around him, they feel like they can win. You buy or sell that idea?
Well, I had and I've been on the phone for the last 3 weeks, so my eyes are starting to, or my ears are starting to bleed with all this stuff. But somebody said something interesting to me over the weekend, and I'd be interested to pose this question to you because I know how much SEC football you watch. How often do you see Mac Jones throw a ball that his receiver had to work for?
It's great point.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they brought that point up to me, and I honestly. Devontae Smith's, obviously incredible, and Jalen Waddle, too, and both those guys have a chance to be stars in the NFL, and Billingsley's good, and Mechie's good, and they've got good players. Harris, obviously, is good. They got good players everywhere, but when he put it that way to me, it was like, there aren't now, doesn't mean the guys don't make great plays, doesn't mean the guys don't do a lot to get open, but how often do you see Mac Jones throw a ball where you said the receiver really had to work for that one?
It's interesting.
Not often,
it's well
right?
said there. No, it's almost never. Happens, and that goes to just his comfort level in the pocket and knowing where he's going and accuracy and everything else.
And it's not. It's accuracy. It's knowing where to go with the ball. It's everything. It's knowing how to throw the ball. Like, do I put touch on this one? Do I drill? All of that stuff goes into it. And you're right. I think with Jimmy. One of the frustrations of Kyle, and look, health is part of this too, right? Let's not dismiss that. He's had a real problem staying healthy, and that's frustrated the Niners. But I do think Jimmy Freelance is too much for Kyle's liking. And anybody who's come through that system, whether it's Kyle's dad, Mike, Gary Kubiak, the LaFleurs, Matt and Mike, Arthur Smith, there is a deep belief in that the system. And I want to put this delicately because I don't think it means that players aren't important, but the system is sort of the star, and who can come out and run the system. And I think, one of the things you hear about Kirk Cousins constantly is he struggles when he's off schedule. Well, Kyle always kept him on schedule. And so, I think it's such an important piece of the offense that, Kyle wants somebody who is going to be able to keep the train on the tracks at all times. Right. And I think that's sort of what Mac is, and everybody you hear, and I got a great story from another team that had him, I think this was a little over 2 months ago in a meeting, and they were installing a bunch of stuff with him. Then they went back to him last week, and they said, hey, can you remember the first thing we installed? Not the first package, not the first the first play we installed with you. And Mac spit it right out. And, this team told me, that's the common stuff you see with Mac. He's constantly able to do that sort of stuff. And so, I think that I think as much as anything else, Clay, it comes down to what you value in the position. And, that's the cool thing about this decision is what we're going to see here is a very real illustration of what Kyle Shanahan values in the quarterback position based on which way he goes. And I think that's sort of why so many of us are reading the tea leaves on Mac Jones, because I do think he represents a lot of things that Kyle values.
We're talking to Albert Breer, Sports Illustrated, about the big decision at 3 for the 49ers. Okay, let's say Mac Jones goes 3, and again, he's the favorite in the betting markets, which I love to monitor as well. How much uncertainty then does that provoke going forward? Because I think it's fair to say there's a lot of interest in Justin Fields and Trey Lance, we know as well. So the next team up would be the Falcons.
Atlanta.
And you've got a story, a scoop in your column that just went up this morning that is interesting and worth breaking down. But the Falcons basically, because of cap issues, have let it be known, according to your reporting, hey, basically any of our guys are available, and that could include Julio Jones, who's 32 years old now, has 3 years left on his contract, and is not super expensive. And how does this factor in? Do you think they go Kyle Pitts? Like, how would you break down the Falcons if the first three are as we surmised?
Well, so, I can't say for sure they're not taking a quarterback, but I can say a lot of their actions, I think I went over this with you maybe last week, but a lot of their actions have sort of dictated or have
Matt Ryan's the guy.
Hinted that Matt Ryan, that they're comfortable with Matt Ryan. At the very least, they're very comfortable with him going forward. They think they can win with him. I think Arthur Smith thinks he can win with him. Terry Fontenot's gone out of his way to build a relationship with the guy. And they restructured his contract, which means they're planning on holding on to him. So here's the way I think that this is just my opinion, the way that I think that they view Kyle Pitts versus Jamar Chase or Penei Sewell, right? So I think that they look at Kyle Pitts. There's one of those like every decade at his position. Whereas like a Jamar Chase or a Penei Sewell, those guys are really, really good. And some teams are going to look at them and say, well, there might be 5 of those every decade, but it's not like one of one. And that's why that's what Kyle Pitts is. I think the other thing you got to look at is Arthur Smith's background. And you know this, here in Nashville, he coached tight ends in Tennessee for how many years? And how strong have the Titans always been at that position, and how important is that to his offense? So I think the idea of plugging Kyle Pitts in there with, Calvin Ridley, with 3 first-round picks on the offensive line, you figure out what to do with Julio afterwards. But I think that there's a feeling that they can compete fairly quickly there and kind of manage their way through the cap situation over the next couple of years. And I don't feel like they don't feel like they need to overreach on a quarterback right now. So maybe there's one they love that I'm just not aware of right now. But like every indication I've gotten from other teams that are trying to figure out what they're doing and everything else is that Kyle Pitts is probably going to be the guy at 4.
So do you think there's any team that is excited enough by Justin Fields or by Trey Lance to trade up? Because the reason why I bring that up is, okay, so if Pitts goes 4 to the Falcons and if they don't trade, back, then at 5, I'm curious, what do you think the Bengals will do? Do you think they're going Penei Sewell? Or I think a couple of weeks ago you came on and said, hey, don't discount Jamar Chase. How would you assess that? And then at 6, it feels like the Dolphins are probably going to grab a wide receiver. The reason, so kind of how would you sketch out the next couple of teams in the first round, your expectations?
Well, there's just like a lot of breadcrumbs on Jamar Chase and the Bengals. There's obviously a connection there with Joe Burrow. There's also like people at LSU have been led to believe that Chase is going to be the 5th pick, and I put whatever stock you want. I mean, obviously they've got a vested interest, so you can put whatever stock you want into that. The other thing that I thought was sort of interesting, the Bengals, I've been told have done a lot of work on offensive linemen who are going to land there at the top of the 2nd round and the top of the 3rd round. And that tells me that they're at least considering, okay, what does it look like if we take Chase at 5, give Joe his receiver, and then come back in the 2nd round and take a lineman there? Like, they've had their offensive line coach on the ground at some of these pro days doing work with these kids. And so I think there's at least evidence there that they're very much looking at the idea, and they're looking at sort of as like a mosaic of like the first 2 or 3 picks. What does it look like if we take Penei Sewell? And then what does it look like if instead we decide, hey, we're going to take Jamar Chase at 5th overall, and then we're going to come back in the 2nd round and take an offensive lineman? And I do think the fact that they went and signed Riley Reif this offseason, who's, been a starting tackle in the league for, I think nearly a decade now, I think at least gives them some level of flexibility where if they want to go receiver in the 1st round and then come back with a lineman in the 2nd round, they could actually put a competent group in front of Joe Burrow.
Okay, so Dolphins, Lions, Panthers, and then we get to the Broncos and the Cowboys, right? Like that's the next 4 or 5 picks. So if you're right, and if Jamar Chase goes 5, the Dolphins, the expectation has been that they would probably go get a playmaker. That would mean Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith from Alabama, obviously, who would know Tua pretty well, would be there. Are they going to reach there? Could they trade back again? Like what happens next in the draft in your mind?
I mean, so I had heard that like the Dolphins had 2 guys in mind. I don't know who the 2 guys are, but had 2 guys in mind when they traded up. And traded back up and got back to 6 after going down to 12. And I I like if I had to guess, I guess those two guys were Pitts and Chase.
Yeah.
And I think you wonder if they'd have a little buyer's remorse because, is Waddle going to be there at 12? Would Devontae Smith have been there at 12? And they gave up like a future one to go and do that. So if Pitts and Chase are gone, it wouldn't surprise me if maybe they went with an offensive lineman there.
Because Penei Sewell would theoretically still be there, or the Northwestern.
Say, which is an investment in your quarterback too. So then, you look at it and say, okay, we can flip our first round pick from last year. Austin Jackson over to the right side. Got another young guy, Robert Hunt, move him inside. So there's a way to do that where you still be investing in your quarterback. I have to think that at that point, if Pitts and Chase are gone, the Dolphins are probably just at least exploring their options to move down and seeing, okay, if we want, say, Devontae Smith or Jalen Waddle, could we get them at 9 or 10? Because there are a couple teams after that there's at least rumors out there that they like. Like Philly is supposedly really hot on Waddle, and Arizona supposedly really likes Waddle. So, I think that there's kind of going to be this chess game there if they still want to come away with a playmaker but recoup some of the capital that they gave up to go back from 12 to 6.
So what's interesting about this is if your sort of reading of the tea leaves is accurate, so let's get to 6 and figure out what exactly is going on there. Lions obviously need a wide receiver. They got a lot of needs. Panthers, you would think, would not be in the quarterback spot. Could the Broncos stay at 9 and get Justin Fields without having to move, in your mind?
Potentially. And they have a shot at part of it too is that they could go from 9 to 7 because Detroit really wants to get out. I think Detroit only has a half dozen picks, if I'm not mistaken. And they'd really like to build up some more capital. They have a lot of holes. So I think of the teams in the top 10, Atlanta's kind of fished around it moving down, but I think there's some question how motivated they are to do it based on how high the price would be to go up there. So I think Detroit's really the team that you're sort of look at as maybe the most motivated to move. And, maybe somebody says, okay, we need to get in front of Carolina to get Fields. And, maybe Denver would be that team. So I think Detroit kind of becomes a hot spot in that scenario where 3 quarterbacks are off the board after 6 picks. And the Lions, I think, are kind of a wild card too because, I think they value certain players who might be available a couple picks later, like a Rashawn Slater for them. I don't know that Dan Campbell is going to pick a receiver with his first, pick as the head coach there. So like a Rashawn Slater there. I've heard Chris Spielman really likes Micah Parsons from Penn State. There are a couple of guys there that I think they might value that could be available a few picks later where they might say, we don't need to ask for the moon and the stars to go down a couple picks. We can just pick up a couple extra pieces of capital, make that move down, and get the guy that we were going to take at 7 anyway.
Can you come back for 5 minutes to close out this second hour with us?
Yeah.
We're talking to Albert Breer. Fantastic. I'm a draft nerd. I love all of this. I can't wait for Thursday.